because a lot of this falls on the Prime Minister's shoulders. We have a weakened, vulnerable economy, and that is all on him. It's not on President Trump. So we go into a trade war being one of the most unproductive countries in the OECD, having not addressed these issues when we knew Trump was going to be elected. We knew this at the end of October, definitely the beginning of November. Did we do anything to pivot to make our economy more competitive? No, we did nothing.
We've got Mark Carney, aka the Antichrist, bumbling, stumbling like a fool, trying to get out of a lie or just trying to come up with more of a lie in order to make people think that he's telling the truth. I guess this seems to be a pretty typical thing that the libs do. Also, Trump tariff updates. Kevin O'Leary absolutely lost it on Justin Trudeau, as well as something else that Danielle Smith said that may actually be one of the many other reasons why Trump is doing this to Canada, or more specifically to Justin Trudeau in particular, that nobody's talking about, actually. And Danielle Smith spoke up on it. So this is going to be a very, very enlightening episode of Over Opinionated with Jasmine Lane. And boy, I got a lot of opinions on all of this stuff. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. You can also comment your thoughts down below and give me a follow on other social media platforms as well. Let's get right into this with the topic of the day, specifically being Trump tariffs and what has now been announced.
The federal government was officially informed for the first time, I should say, in this entire process, that this was going to happen this morning. Cabinet is set to meet at 3 o'clock Eastern, so exactly an hour from now, where, of course, this will be the subject of conversation. And then we do anticipate that we will hear from the Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, at 6 o'clock Eastern this evening. They're going to announce Canada's response.
Before we get into the details of what was announced and the timeframes, I did want to point you to something I saw that is just outrageous. It is truly outrageous. It's embarrassing. It is shameful. So Melanie Joly, as we know, was down in DC. She was meeting with people. She met with Marco Rubio, and nothing changed about the tariffs whatsoever given her meetings. But Brian Lilly just posted this. He said, Melanie Joly met 4 senators in DC. 2 are liberal Democrats, and 1, Tim Kaine, was Hillary Clinton's running mate in 2016. One of the Republicans, Senator Murkowski, has voted against Trump's cabinet picks and mused about leaving the GOP over Trump. This is bad diplomacy. So these are Trudeau's game plans. This is what he's planning. He's out there meeting with people, and this is where Melanie Joly goes to meet. I shouldn't say he's out there. She's out there. I don't even know, like, has he talked with Donald Trump? It doesn't sound like it. I honestly don't think that Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau have had a single word together in the last little while. So both CBC and CTV have now confirmed that the tariff plan that Donald Trump has announced, which the Trudeau government was informed of earlier this morning and will be speaking on a little bit later. Perhaps by the time I am wrapping up this video, that meeting will be happening and I'll include it in here. If not, I'll include it for you tomorrow and we can kind of dissect all of it. Trump's plan, though, is a 10% tariff on Canadian energy products. This is according to a senior Canadian official who shared details of Trump's plan with CBC News, and a 25% tariff on virtually all goods from this country. And here is a very interesting development. This came out less than 30 minutes ago.
I wish it was good news, but I don't know if this is a good news day. What I'm being told by sources who are aware of what was communicated to the Canadian government today from the United States, it wasn't just the tariffs, it wasn't just the ultimatum on fentanyl. There was also a warning that if Canada retaliates, the tariffs will increase. So there is a preemptive strike, or at least in terms of a message to the Canadian government, that if it retaliates with the targeted tariffs that it has been planning to, then the percentages will go up. This is something the president said. Remember when we were watching the video of him speaking in the Oval Office yesterday, he says the tariffs may go up, maybe not. He sort of floated it out there. Well, it's been communicated, I'm told, to the Canadian government that if there is a retaliation of any kind, then the U.S. will increase its trade action against this country. Now, that puts them in a very difficult position. I mean, what choice do you have?
That is a very shocking move to make, but also that's kind of what happens when you have this incredibly ununified government who everybody is sharing things. And especially during, it's so crazy to me because I think it was just really bad ideas. You have this liberal leadership race. So instead of just having, Justin Trudeau being the person who is speaking on behalf of the party, so to speak, you have all of these other people now who are running for a leadership race and making Donald Trump a portion of their campaign. I mean, look at Chrystia Freeland. Oh, Donald Trump is so scared of me. Here's all the things I would do because he's a bully. You have Mark Carney doing the same thing. You have literally everybody who is running for leadership race other than the prime minister of the country who is declaring what they would do and how hard they would hit. And it just becomes this really messy message that is going through, and you have that being the loudest thing coming out of the country versus what the Trudeau government is actually announcing. Like, you should have actually just had a statement and everybody else shut up during this period of time versus all of these other voices of people who are using Donald Trump as a way to try to buy themselves some votes, which is just, even that alone is just so crazy and egotistical.
There's been such a lack of specifics and a lack of response from the federal government to this point. The criticism is, why aren't you out there? Why aren't you standing up for Canada the way Doug Ford is doing and Danielle Smith is doing, depending on who you think is the right path? It's precisely because they didn't want to provoke something until they had to, right? And that there's, by doing something, for domestic political concerns and, to satisfy the media cycle would antagonize the president or the people around him to move the goalposts or raise the stakes yet again. So they've avoided it, and now you have to calibrate again with this threat that, like, this is a catastrophic assault on the Canadian economy with the threat to make it more so.
Have they really avoided it, though? Because, Danielle Smith has been on networks promoting Canada, promoting the U.S. The responses from Ford and Smith have all been to go on American outlets and talk about the amazing partnerships that we do have in this country. This is the response from the Liberals. So do you really think you didn't provoke anything?
Well, Donald Trump, you're a disgrace as a human being. I'm sorry, you may have gotten the presidency, but you're a disgrace. You're a convicted felon. You're a pervert. You treat your allies with absolute disdain while you kiss up to Putin.
A retaliation list. I think it should be massive, right? It should be $200 billion.
We will never, ever bow down to a bully.
But if Donald Trump thinks, if you think you can pick a fight with us, there'll be a price to pay.
The threat comes, of course, from the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known predator.
Whether that is electricity from Ontario, whether it is oil and gas from Alberta.
Would you support turning off the power?
If we have to, then I think that's something that we have to show Americans, and they do depend on us.
I think we're proud.
So we need to do that.
I think we're proud, but we're worried.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? But I think at this point in time, actually what we don't need to be is worried, because I know that we are smarter and we are better able to handle this than the Americans.
And while all of that sounds really nice and positive, I'm kind of tired of people lying to me and sugarcoating things, because we can all feel and find the data out there to show that everything that they're saying is just completely a lie, and that is 100% at the feet of Justin Trudeau. The Liberal government has ran massive deficits. If Canada had controlled their spending and reduced unnecessary debts, and what I'm about to show you is going to make you mad, we could have actually had a lot of fiscal room to respond to this. High debt, higher interest payments, less money for economic relief, less economy stimulation. Here's some facts for you. Corporate investment has been declining in Canada. The reason for that has to do with taxes, permitting, the length that it takes in order to get anything built and approved here because of our overinflated bureaucracy. Projects that could take a year end up taking 10. Those 10 years cost an awful lot of money, and that is why dozens of manufacturing jobs, dozens of investments have just left the country, because places like the US and other countries are far more appealing to them because they can actually make a profit in a reasonable amount of time. If Canada had lowered corporate taxes, cut the red tape, and reduced the energy costs of things, we would have been in a much more competitive state, and this probably wouldn't have been a huge deal. Let's not forget that under Justin Trudeau, pipelines have been blocked, energy projects have been shut down. All of these things have made Canada incredibly dependent on the very few partners that we do have, that we have the ability to transport our goods to. And then the nice little cherry on top has been everybody from Trudeau's Liberal team and the NDPs and everybody who just supports wacko policies from Justin Trudeau, taking every opportunity they can. Tariffs were already something that was on the table from Donald Trump when Trudeau decided to go and make that statement at the G7. See, this is what happens when you have a child in politics who has no self-control and no restraint.
The leader of the opposition needs to reflect carefully on whether he really wants to amplify the erroneous narratives that the Americans are putting forward around, for example, our border.
And buckle up, because this part's going to make you mad. The day before Trump tariffs are expected to be announced, the Trudeau Liberals approved various nonprofit organizations to get their money from our tax dollars, of course. Some of the projects on the list were things that I support, and I'm okay with my taxes going towards it. Other ones, though, including $41.5 million to 106 2S LGBTQI+, they added another letter, projects across Canada. $20.2 million to 10 nonprofits set to administer the school food infrastructure and further distribute funding. $1 million to develop an energy innovation hub in Saskatchewan. So, you had an opportunity there to save like $50 million just right then and there to say, you know what, these projects, while they may be important to the people who want them, not a priority right now. We got bigger fish to fry. What does he do? He says, don't you worry, guys. I don't care about our economy. Here you go. Take all of this money.
It falls on the shoulders of the Prime Minister because of if anything, the fiscal policy that this government has had over the last 10 years. I mean, let's step back and reflect on where we're at. First of all, it's great to hear that everything's on the table when Parliament isn't even in session. The people of Canada have elected their representative to sit in the House and address these types of issues. Parliament should be recalled immediately. The fact that we're all discussing these issues and lots of smart people are weighing in is great. But here's a thought. The people that are elected by Canadians should be talking about this in Parliament. There is nothing stopping the Prime Minister from recalling Parliament and having those people that are duly elected by Canadians that represent the will of Canadians discussing one of the biggest economic crises in the last decade. And second to that, there may not be this sense of unity because a lot of this falls on the Prime Minister's shoulders. We have a weakened, vulnerable economy, and that is all on him. It's not on President Trump. So we go into a trade war, being one of the most unproductive countries in the OECD, having not addressed these issues when we knew Trump was going to be elected. We knew this at the end of October, definitely the beginning of November. Did we do anything to pivot to make our economy more competitive? No, we did nothing. In fact, we raised capital gains taxes on inventors and entrepreneurs and small business owners, which has been a drain on the economy. We can't attract capital into this country, and we have an issue of productivity and job creation. And now we're facing a president, which we knew wanted to create the most competitive country in the world. And he's doing exactly that in a very bold fashion. So it's not just about how we retaliate. It's about how we get our own house in order. And how have we responded? We've done nothing to date. I would also say this. Because I'm upset at the way the Prime Minister's run the country does not mean I am pro-Trump or pro his agenda, but I have to ask the Prime Minister, I have not heard him address the issue of fentanyl once. I don't know a lot about fentanyl. I do know that precursors were a problem even when we were in government a decade ago. They continue to be a problem coming in from China into Canada. We know that there's been busts of super labs that are created just for export of fentanyl to the United States. So even if the fentanyl issue is a small one, we have not heard the Foreign Minister of Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada, mention anything about this other than to say, we're not Mexico, we're not the problem. What if we're a tiny bit of the problem? Why can't we at least address the issue? It would just close one of the doors that seems to be open for the president to walk through in a tack us on.
Now, to be clear, the Trump administration has said that the tariffs will be imposed until Canada fixes those problems. It doesn't matter how small they are. If anything, the fact that they're small is great because they should then be able to be solved rather quickly. And these tariffs should be able to be gone away rather quickly. If we had a competent government, that is.
Probably what happens, the real negotiations are going to wait until the federal election in Canada, which could be as much as 80 days away. It really depends when the idiot king needs to leave. He hasn't decided when he wants to do it yet, but hopefully that's soon.
Canadian economist Kent Fellow saying we should follow OPEC's playbook and just turn the taps off whenever we want. Is that, do you think, a reasonable and possible solution?
No, it's a dumb idea because it does two things. It actually hurts the U.S. economy, which is not in our best interest. But worse, it devastates fund flows into Alberta. So if you're an Alberta's resident, a taxpayer in Alberta, you've never heard a more stupid idea than that. So that's other premiers telling Danielle Smith what to do, and she's not going to have any of it. I mean, there's just no way that's going to happen. That's a major reason that we can fund all the waste in Quebec. Think about it. We spend billions of dollars out of Alberta's money to give it to dairy farmers who make butter, eggs, and cheese and throw it in the garbage. That's the kind of situation we have in Canada right now. And our health care costs, much of it, and all of these transfer payments, who do you think makes all the money? We might as well tell the truth to each other in Canada. It all comes from Alberta. Everybody else is sucking the tit of the cash coming out of Alberta. That's basically it. And some Saskatchewan too. But make no mistake about it. Mother's milk is Alberta and everybody else is at the teat.
So what, on that note, I mean, you saw the pushback, the hate that Premier Danielle Smith was receiving. People, you know, in Canada labeling her a traitor, Kevin. I know you're very close with her. You're down at Mar-a-Lago with her. I mean, what did you make of that, this pushback and the talk that they're giving her?
She's a fearless leader, and she's a visionary and smart enough to know that it's better to have your adversary on speed dial than to have no relationship with them at all.
The Liberal Party leader races on as we speak, but by the time an election happens, I mean, it could likely be 6 months that Canada is in limbo here. And that's what my concern is, Kevin, is, you know, 6 months of being extremely just so vulnerable to the U.S.
You know, this is where it really boils down to ask yourself, what is in the mind of the idiot king? Why is he doing this to his own people? Why? He has no chance of surviving this election in any leadership role. He knows that. The party has basically kicked him out. What is he doing? Who is he serving? This is why he is the idiot king. His legacy will be that of the idiot king. He has no idea what he's doing, and we now learned he had no idea for basically 9 years. All of that policy came out of Gerald Butts, who is now helping a new Liberal leader, which I think is an unholy union. I mean, if Carney were to become anywhere near the government with Gerald Butts' policy, the Canadian dollar would not just stop with a 41% decline. He hasn't finished the work he wants to do. Gerald Butts is the Antichrist of Canada. He'll wipe out the economy as he started doing with his very negative policy on resources, which stopped fund flows into Canada. Look, it's controversial, I get it, but the best thing for Canadians right now is for the idiot king to step aside, call an election, and move forward. That's the only path that's going to help us. No other path is going to work. There's an idiot king behind.
Also, fun fact, Gerald Butts works with the Eurasia Group, which is also where Mark Carney's wife works, which is also where the Trudeau Liberals have given a lot of federal funding to. Just a fun little corruption.
Real quickly, and this is a separate topic, but it's something I know you care about.
We're going to finish this off with a question that Premier Danielle Smith was asked while she was interviewing on an American news outlet. And I really think this is something to consider because while this has nothing to do with the Trump tariffs per se, this question reflects how a lot of Americans view Justin Trudeau's woke, wacko, insane policies and the things that he is allowing to happen in this country and why they respect him so very little. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can like the video to help YouTube push it out to more people. Comment your thoughts down below as well, and give me a follow on other social media platforms.
And I know our audience cares about as well. As we look at Canada, to see the changes there, we see the increase of doctor-assisted suicide in Canada. It now accounts for what I saw, I think, in a BBC report, 1 out of every 20 deaths, and we see that trend increasing. This, I think, to a lot of people is frightening.
And it should be frightening. I mean, one of the things that the federal government is allowing is the potential for people to seek MAID because of mental illness. We've heard of people seeking MAID because they're poor and can't get on government supports. It's outrageous. The intention behind it was always that if death was reasonably foreseeable and imminent from a condition you weren't going to recover from, like late-stage cancer or something along those lines, that that a person would have the choice. But it's broadened out to a point where it's completely unreasonable, and we've resisted moving down that path. We're creating a separate oversight body to make sure that doctors have the oversight if they do make that determination, so that families can intervene in the event that somebody's just seeking it because they're having a bad patch in life. We don't want somebody feeling so desperate that they think that's the only answer. We want people to recover if they can and get their lives back. So we take a bit of a different approach on that.
Yeah, not a good look for any government when people are choosing to die as opposed to living, and it's very concerning, and I know you're concerned about that. And a lot of Americans are looking north, hoping for more cooperation from the government in Ottawa. We'll look forward to those elections coming up, and Danielle will be in touch with you as well. Thank you so much for being with us today. A pleasure.
Thank you. Well, you have a great friend in Alberta, and we're looking forward to continuing that relationship.